Hi, welcome to another video. My name is Maggie and today we're going to be making sweet potato pie. This pie is just in time for fall with cinnamon, sweet potato, nutmeg. All the fall flavors really come out in this delicious pie. So stick with me and I will show you how to make it. We will get started by turning our oven to 350 degrees. So we'll get started making our pie crust. So you're going to need a food processor. So the first thing we're gonna need is a half of a cup of rolled oats. And you just wanna pulse the oats a few times. And next we have 1 cup of pecans. They're not toasted. Pulse it again a few times. And next I'm gonna add my dates. So I've pitted 10 fancy medjool dates, but you can use a couple more if they're not as big. These are super big and gooey. And if your dates aren't really gooey, you wanna soak them in the fridge for a couple hours. And we're also gonna add 1/3 of a cup of shredded coconut. I'm using unsweetened. 1/2 of a cup of maple syrup or agave nectar or coconut nectar. Either of those work fine. Just a pinch of salt and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And go ahead and mix this up. So after about 30 seconds, my crust is good to go. So it's super sticky and pretty thick, but moldable, and that's just what you want. So now we're gonna line our pie pan, and I'm gonna lightly coat it with coconut oil. Just get a little bit on your hands and rub it in the bottom of the pan. Make sure your hands are clean. And up around the sides. There we go. And take your mixture and just start pushing your mixture down to the bottom and working it into the pan. And if you wet your hands, it works a lot better. Go ahead and put your crust into the freezer for about 30 minutes so it can set. So now it's time to make our flax egg. I'm gonna make the equivalent of 1 egg and I'm using ground flax seeds. So with the flax eggs, it's a 2-to-1 ratio. So for every 1 tablespoon of flax seeds, you use 2 tablespoons of water. So since I'm just making the equivalent of 1 flax egg, I'm just gonna do 1 tablespoon of flax and 2 tablespoons of water. And just give this a nice mix and set it aside while we make the rest of our pie filling. So it is time to get started on our pie filling. So I have 1/4 of a cup of maple syrup. I've got 1/2 a cup of some organic brown sugar. 1/2 of a cup of almond or soy milk. Today I'm using almond milk. 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. 1/2 of a teaspoon of ground ginger, and 1/2 of a teaspoon of nutmeg, and about 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. Next up, I have 1/4 of a cup of some melted vegan butter. I'm using the Earth Balance brand. So now it's just time to scoop in the meat of our sweet potatoes. So I have 2 large sweet potatoes and I baked them at 400 degrees for about an hour. I've let them cool down quite a bit, but they're still kind of warm. So all of our ingredients are in except for our flax egg, which has gotten nice and goopy now that we've let it sit for a few minutes. And we'll go ahead and add this. And now just mix it up. And you don't have to use the electric mixer. You can do this by hand, but this just makes it a lot easier. So I just took our crust out of the freezer, and now it's time to pour in our mixture. Mixture filled up our pie crust perfectly. And just, you don't need to get too crazy or anal with the top, which I have a tendency to do. So we'll go ahead and put our pie in the oven. Our oven has been preheated to 350 and we'll bake it for about 40 minutes. So while our pie is baking, we'll go ahead and make our coconut whipped cream topping. So I've got a can of full fat coconut milk. So I put the coconut milk in the fridge overnight so that the liquid and the coconut fat would separate. So now I'm just gonna pour out the liquid, and I'm only interested in the coconut fat. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour the coconut fat into the bowl. And to the coconut fat, I'm gonna add a teaspoon of cinnamon. We're also gonna add a teaspoon of vanilla. I'm actually using pure vanilla bean, but you can definitely use vanilla extract. And 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, agave nectar, or coconut nectar. I'm actually using coconut nectar only because I ran out of maple, but they all do the job really well. And now it's time to whisk, 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 and just keep whisking it because it's gonna get fluffier and fluffier the more you whisk. So I'm gonna go ahead and just transfer this now into a container and put it in the fridge. So the pie just came out of the oven and my whole house smells so delicious. I'm really excited to try this pie. So we'll let it cool for a little bit and then we'll be back for the final taste test. So our pie is all done. I put some of our homemade whipped cream on top and it's time for the final taste test. So good. This pie is delicious. Even if you're not a vegan, I highly recommend you make this pie. It is so, so good. Such a nice contrast with the cool whipped cream and the warm, kind of cinnamony sweet potato pie. I think it's even better than pumpkin pie. So good. Thank you so much for watching. Definitely make this pie. And as always, keep it vegan, baby.